Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Flaps, don't run away. I want to have a little word with you. But I just want to thank you for not disclosing my age. So that's number one. Number two, thank you for keeping the introduction short, because I did plead with Flaps beforehand to please keep the introduction short. But Flaps, now I want to explain to you why I was so serious about it. A few years ago, I had to address a group of farmers, and their conference took place in the thriving metropolis of Bothaville. And they didn't have an MC, they had a program director who took his job even more seriously than what Flap does. And he got hold of the long version of my CV, and he started reading the whole thing, and I sat there and I became increasingly more embarrassed. But fortunately, when he got to page 3, a farmer who sat in the second row intervened. He put up his hand, he interrupted the program director, and this is what he said to him. He obviously spoke in Afrikaans, but I'll give you the English version. He said, "For heaven's sake, we don't want to breed with Brandt, we just want to listen to him." So afterwards I went to him, I introduced myself, I thanked him for saving me so much embarrassment. And John, this is highly confidential. I then thanked him for the thought that I can still breathe. So it's a wonderful pleasure to be with you. I regard it as an honor. I want to thank Maynard Oosthuizen for the invitation. And just to conclude the introduction, Flaps was very complimentary about my so-called achievements. And I just want to say I deserve no credit whatsoever. The Lord blessed me. His grace and His love sustained me through good times and bad times. So I just have so much gratitude in my heart. So it's special to be with you. Maynard sent me some background information regarding the Life Work Leadership Program. It's wonderful to be here at Doxadio, Brooklyn. And it's great that you selected such an important theme, namely integrity. So over the tea break, where's Dr. Snowy? There she is. One can't miss her. This is also confidential. She's going to stand for president. But we were talking about integrity, or the lack thereof. And as we all know, and I don't say it with glee, I say it with sadness, there's an enormous trust deficit in our country. And I'm talking about a trust deficit at the political level, at the level of business, at the social level, because of a lack of integrity. So Maynard has asked me to talk to you about high integrity leadership. So I'm going to have a conversation with you, a somewhat broader conversation about leadership per se, and then I'll put particular emphasis on ethical leadership as a prerequisite for effective leadership. But let's start off by talking about leadership. I want to make a statement, not my statement. I'm sure all of you have read some of John Maxwell's books. he says, everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership really matters whether one runs a country or a city, and I see you involved with transformation. Whether you run a church, whether you run a school, whether you run a business, whether you run a family. Leadership is a critical success factor. I tend to liken leadership to electricity, and I say, where there's poor leadership, people, figuratively speaking, spend their days in the dark, without direction, without hope, disconnected and demotivated, feeling hopeless. And the opposite is also true. Where there's quality leadership, the lights are on. And there's direction, and there's motivation, and there's inspiration, and then people deliver results. So I've been in business now for 44 years, and this is what I learned, that the quality of leadership represents the most potent competitive advantage any business can ever have. And the quality of leadership of self is the source of every great achievement. The quality of leadership of self is the bedrock of every extraordinary life. That's how important leadership is. So what is the current reality when it comes to the quality of leadership in South Africa? I'm not going to say anything more about the quality or the lack thereof at the political level. But even in the very competitive world of business, the quality of leadership sometimes leaves a lot to be desired. And there's scientific evidence every year. Various companies do engagement surveys. I had a look at the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey, the results for South Africa going back to 2015. Only 8% of South African employees said, I am fully engaged, I identify with the vision, the mission, and the values. I trust my leader, I've got confidence in my leader, I'm doing my best. And a very concerning 46% said, I'm completely disconnected. I don't trust my leader, I have no confidence, I just do enough to stay out of trouble. That's very concerning, and whose fault is it? It's undoubtedly not the employee's fault. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the fault of the leader. I saw it at McCarthy. 2 dealerships located 25 kilometers apart. Same franchise, same business. One dealership fully engaged, 55%. Other dealership fully engaged, 5%. Only variable, the quality of leadership. So what is the desired outcome of effective leadership? Is it that people should comply, follow instructions to the T? That's not leadership, that's domination. So, what is the desired outcome then of effective inspirational leadership? The desired outcome is that every team member should identify with the vision of the team or the organization, should embrace the values, should work together towards the attainment of a common purpose. But perhaps the real test is where there's effective leadership, every team member volunteers his or her intelligence and energy and loyalty and contribution and commitment. And then when people volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their contribution and their commitment, they accept co-responsibility. There's a sense of belonging. They join hands. And what is the eventual outcome? They deliver sparkling results. So is it easy to get people to volunteer their intelligence and their energy and their loyalty and their contribution? It's not. 14 million books have already been written about leadership and management. It's now 14,000,001 because I also wrote one. People are still looking for answers. Human behavior is not always predictable, so leadership therefore is both an art and a science. So am I equipped to give you advice about leadership? Flaps referred to the time that I spent at McCarthy, but prior to that, I spent 22 years at Toyota South Africa, where everything kept going right. And I learned just a little bit. And then, as Flaps mentioned, I joined the McCarthy Group as head of the motor division of McCarthy, but McCarthy was a big diversified retailer. You could buy anything from a pair of underpants to a Rolls Royce from the McCarthy Group. And the non-motor side of the company imploded, and we ended up in an insolvent position. 15,000 employees, 1,100 retail outlets. It was a listed company. The share price plummeted from 21 Rand to 18 cents. And we owed 8 banks, 1.5 billion Rand. And then I started learning about my faith. I started learning about myself. I started learning about the power of the human spirit. I started learning about business, and I started learning about leadership because I had the responsibility of trying to save the company and restore it to profitability. So the leadership thoughts I'm going to share with you, I didn't read about it in a book. I'm going to share with you what I experienced, what I learned, but more than that, I'm going to share with you what I stand for and what I believe in. Few lessons I learned. Lesson number 1 is, if you can't lead yourself, then it's impossible. Then you don't even get out of the starting blocks in your efforts to try and lead other people. And it's a subject all on its own, the leadership of self, and we have no time. Just a few prerequisites for effective leadership of self. The first one is a high level of moral intelligence. We get back to integrity. To have a moral compass that points true north. To have a clear idea as to what is right and what is wrong. Your moral intelligence determines your applied integrity. You need a high level of emotional intelligence because we work under enormous pressure. So your ability to understand and manage your own emotions is of critical importance. You need self-discipline if you want to lead yourself effectively. To do what you need to do when you have to do it, whether you feel like it or not. You need perseverance. Those are a few prerequisites for effective leadership of self. Second leadership lesson I want to share with you is that leadership, in my view, has got nothing to do with power and position and authority and self-importance, but it's got everything to do with influence, and influence has to be earned. And there's only one way to earn influence. You have to set the best example 24/7, and you need to deliver the results. Next lesson I learned is that there's a big difference between leading people and managing people. And my observation is that the majority of teams are overmanaged and underled. Both functions are very important. Leadership, when it comes to giving direction, providing inspiration, motivation, and management when it comes to effective execution. So management is about planning and organizing and coordinating and controlling. But well-managed people aren't necessarily motivated or inspired. So leadership is something entirely different. Leadership is to have the courage to go first, to provide a clear vision, a clear direction. Leadership is about faith and passion and people and purpose. So sometimes, because of a high level of operational pressure, we don't make time to lead. We just operate. So my advice to you is do an analysis and make sure that you afford your leading responsibility sufficient time and energy, as well as your management responsibility. Next lesson I learned very quickly is you can't lead on autopilot or by emulating somebody else. You need to have your own authentic leadership philosophy. So what is the most popular option? The most popular option when it comes to a leadership approach is just to be an autocratic boss. To intimidate the people, to use your positional power, to put the fear of God into people. Doesn't work anymore. I can still remember when I was promoted for the first time at Toyota South Africa, I emulated my boss, and I can gossip about him because he lives in Australia. I'm not going to mention his name. So I tried to be such a tough autocratic boss. Didn't work. Fortunately, a few weeks after my appointment, Tilly and I, my wife and I, went to Bloemfontein. It was my late mother's birthday. And on the way back that Sunday afternoon, I said to Tilly, I've been emulating the wrong leader. She said, yes. I said, I should rather emulate my mother. My mother had no academic qualification. She raised 4 boys without ever raising her voice. She earned our trust and respect and admiration and love through her example. She cared about us very deeply. She loved us unconditionally. She served her family. And although my father was the undisputed head of the household, my mother was the heart, and she had infinitely more influence than what he had. And I said to Tilly, even in the tough world of business, people will respond better to love than to fear. And over the years, I had many discussions with my mother, and she said to me, I'm just trying to radiate God's love. She was my first example as to how a servant leader should behave. And only later in my career did I start reading about servant leadership, I started reading about the study that an American with the name of Robert Greenleaf did about leadership, and how he posed the question, how was it possible that a poor carpenter, Jesus Christ, became the most powerful leader the world has ever known? And then he did a study of Jesus Christ and his leadership capacity, and he had the checklist. Jesus Christ was visionary, principled, fantastic at team building, a wonderful communicator. He was willing to forgive. He was highly principled. But Greenleaf said two things set Jesus Christ apart as a leader. The first thing is, he was willing to serve. He said to lead us to serve. He washed the feet of his disciples. The second thing Greenleaf said is, he loved his people. He died for his followers on the cross. I'm saying to you that the example of Jesus Christ and his leadership approach, please consider to also follow that example in the tough world of business. You can be bold in terms of your objectives without being a bully. You can be firm but fair. You can be gentle but fearless. You can be rigorous when it comes to results, but not ruthless when it comes to people. You can be humble without being timid. You can be kind without being weak. Second last lesson I learned, and so important in the light of the theme of your conference, is ethical leadership is a prerequisite for effective leadership. Integrity is the crucial currency of leadership. Leadership starts from within. It's all about character. It's not about charisma. Effective leadership is not personality-based. It's principle-based. Leadership is not a way of behaving. Leadership is a way of being. The principle of integrity is of paramount importance, because only people who behave with integrity will be regarded as trustworthy. And trustworthiness provides the foundation for sustainable leadership success. Trust is the foundational value of leadership. Trust is the one thing that changes everything. Trust trumps everything. Should a leader lose the trust of his people, then he will be unable to lead, because the leader will lose all his or her credibility. Ethical leadership is a prerequisite for effective leadership. Last lesson I want to share with you. The acid test for leadership is to be found in your ability to translate your vision into reality, your ability to deliver the results, your ability to get the job done. Some leaders feed their followers on a never-ending diet of promises. But promises not kept turn into lies. And when followers say only words, only promises, my leader is lying to me, once again the leader will lose all his or her influence. So plans mean little. Implementation is everything. Effort means little. Results mean a lot. Effective leaders get the job done. So let me conclude. We spoke about the importance of leadership. I likened leadership to electricity. I want to tell you a simple story along the electricity theme. Something that I'm sure you'll take home with you. Some years ago, I visited the most successful motor dealer in Australia, a guy called John Hughes. And he took me on dealer visits that particular day, and wherever we went, I saw evidence of fully engaged people. I saw bright eyes and broad smiles. I detected energy and enthusiasm. That evening over dinner, I said, John, it was such an inspirational day. You are an incredible leader. How do you do it? And this is what I am recommending to you, words to put into your own hearts. John said, I am the light switch every morning. When I walk into my business, I look my people in the eye, I engage with them, I respect them, I trust them, I empower them, I acknowledge their efforts, I coach them. He said, Bron, to be frank, I just love my people. So I'm saying to you, if you want to glorify your Creator, then in your leadership capacity, just follow the example of Jesus Christ. Become a servant leader. And be deliberate in your efforts every morning at home, at work, to switch on, to be the light switch. It takes a lot of effort. It takes an enormous amount of commitment. We can only be the light switch every morning wherever we go, provided we lead and not mislead. We can be the light switch every morning if we suppress our egos and build our characters. We can be the light switch every morning should we really care and be willing to serve. We can be the light switch should we prize truth and respect and results and service above power and authority and self-importance and self-enrichment. We can be the light switch if we stand for the truth, for the affirmation of the good. I want to wish each and every one of you God's richest blessings with your leadership challenge. Thank you.